So with our handsome Mr. T, I know we did a little bit of filming last time outside. Today it is a little bit chillier, but then also there's a bit of salt and sand out on the parking lot. So I figured we would do a little bit of indoor practice. So what I wanted to touch base on was a little bit with recall and recall rules. So a lot of times what we tend to do is maybe we practice recalls in very calm and easy environments, and that's a really great starting point. But make sure that if you are ever calling for a recall and the environment is way too stimulating or you think your baby is not going to be successful, I recommend to not say your cue word unless you're pretty certain he's going to perform. Obviously, you'll see that I'm just having him drag the long line so we can practice, with the gear on. So we might go, Teddy, come. And let's say, for example, Mr. T is distracted by an odor, which can, of course, happen. We would want to go ahead and go down our long line and then get his attention. I know we're technically a little bit out of range. So ready? Teddy. Yes. So what I tend to do is for your recall rules, make sure not to, again, use your recall when your babe is going to most definitely not be performing the skill very well. So if your babe doesn't have much for recall, some of my favorite places to start would be in the home, in the yard, and start there. Ready? Teddy, come. He's like, hold on, lady. Yes, what a good boy. So if let's say Mr. T is sometimes having a hard time with recall, I would recommend to never pair your recall with something scary. So for example, let's say your dog is scared of going in the tub or they're scared of doing nail time or whatever the thing is that they're not a huge fan of. You don't want to pair a recall with that situation. So if let's say you call your puppy to you and then you bring them into the bathtub, the next time you call them could equal tubby time and maybe they're not a huge fan. So ready? Teddy, come. So if Mr. T is more intrigued by the nice smells in the classroom, remember that this could be very distracting, just like outside. So if let's say I had called his name and there was no response, nice job, sir. But let's say I had called his name and there's no check-in. You don't want to repeat yourself over and over because either one, he's going to lose out on the meaning behind the word, or he's going to maybe think that several recalls finally equal check-in. Nice job visiting. So I'd want to make sure that when Mr. T is practicing, that it's again not paired with that scary thing. The other moment too is make sure, well, that's a very nice stretch, sir, is make sure that recalls are not the end of fun. So if let's say he was doing a great job playing in the yard, and then that's the time you finally call him to come into the house, then Mr. Handsom's going to think that recalls equal the game is over. And what tends to happen is you get less and less of a check-in to go back to the home or other zones that you were hoping to get back into. So if Mr. T is a little bit distracted, make sure that, again, a long line is implemented. Because if, let's say, for safety reasons, your baby doesn't have the greatest recall, having them off leash instantly is not a great way to set them up for success. And you might actually be promoting ignoring your recall and your cues. Because as they're listening to you squealing in the background, they're having the greatest time of their lives, maybe frolicking in the woods or chasing a deer or onto an odor. So I would highly recommend in the beginning, you might even start off with doing some find its, get them to go search for the snack. And then from there, go again, Teddy, come, and then feed him from a shorter distance in the full, let's say 15 or 30 feet or whatever you might have. So getting your babes to do little find its and then bounce back from that, Teddy, come, could be another great way to hone in on this skill. If you do find that you're repeating yourself, you may need to find either a softer or a more calm environment to work the skill. Or you may find that your puppy needs a little bit more refresher on what recall might equal. So if let's say your baby is having a hard time, we're going to go, Teddy, come. Yes. But if let's say Mr. T was really not doing so well with it, we'd want to make sure that all his other needs have been met. So maybe Mr. T has to go to the restroom, or maybe Mr. T has a lot more energy and he'd like to expend it, or maybe he needs to go grab a little drink, so we'll let him go over to the water bowl off in the distance there and have him get a drink. So the third recall rule is, again, if your babe happened to scuttle away and maybe they made their way onto the road and back off the road, is even though you might be upset because they almost just didn't make it, if you get upset when they finally come back to you, they're going to think that coming to you is at times dangerous or not really safe. So make sure, even if your dog has done the silliest thing ever by romping in the woods and then maybe going across the highway and then they finally did come back to you, you want to heavily praise them for coming to you, even if it wasn't the greatest in the in-between. Obviously, to avoid failure, using a longer lead or training line is immensely helpful. So that way, while you're practicing with your babe, you could then go ahead and let's say you called them the first recall, nothing happens. Then you try from half the distance. So you either collect up the lead, not reining them in like a tuna, but you collect up the lead, and as you're walking down the lead or collecting it up in your hands, you would say again the recall from half the distance. So that way, if let's say on recall number 2, there is no checking in, that means that either the babe is past their comfort range or a little overwhelmed. So Teddy, come. He's like, weird noises. So there are some lovely noises in the background. You can't always pick it up on the video. So, but there's lots of big trucks that go by. There's lots of airplanes that like to fly past. And then, of course, there's the big trains that also go by, some of the shipping trains with the cargo on them. So let's say Mr. T, I don't get his attention. I'm not going to repeat myself and have it lose its meaning. So I would go right to Mr. T. He says, my shoes smell delicious. I might go right into a little find it, see if he wants to go grab that bad boy. And then from there, Teddy, come. Beautiful. What a good boy. Yes. So if your babe is doing amazing with a couple recalls, awesome. Don't keep doing it to the point where it becomes so much work. Ready? Teddy. He's like, hold on, lady, this looks very nice and smelly. So right here, let's say there was no response. I could walk down my lead so he can't get further away, gain his attention, and go, Teddy, come, and feed him for that. So that way, we're kind of working within his comfort range. So when he is having a hard time, yes, he's still successful. So even if Mr. T doesn't always hear me ask for his check-in, but he gives it to me on his own, I'm going to still reinforce that because it's reorientation back to me again. Ready, Teddy? So we'll do a little find it, get him to kind of go off in the distance, and then Teddy, come. Yes, what a good boy. So, but when practicing, make sure that if, let's say your puppy could do, so that one he lost, so I'll toss another one. So let's say your puppy can do a beautiful 10 recalls, one after the other. I wouldn't do so many that he has a hard time and wants to give up. Ready? Teddy, come. He's like, I might have to go to the restroom. So we might sneak Mr. T out again for a little potty because he did go pee, but he might have to go potty again, and that's okay. So with your babes, if you're finding they're not as responsive, always check for potty breaks, especially if you're indoors doing a few skills. So we'll maybe bring the handsome guy out for a little quick pee, and then we'll do some more practice. But recall rules again. Remember, don't make them the end of fun. Don't pair them with something scary, and don't you become spooky or overwhelming when they do finally come to you. So remember, you want to promote that recalls are beneficial, that they're fun, and not the end of the game. So that way, no matter when you ask for a recall, they're going to be just as reliable as if there was no distraction or distractions. So remember, all these skills, Teddy, come, have to get generalized. So if you're finding they do amazing in the house, but not so well outside, I would check the value of your reinforcements as well. If they are not of a value they find really motivational, you may be by accident showing them the world is cooler than what we have to sometimes we offer. So definitely rotate through the different types of reinforcements. You may find for some play is more reinforcing, others coming to a toy and wrestling with you is more reinforcing. And then for others, maybe having that rotation. So I know he really loves hot dog. Maybe hot dogs become his really special snack for things he deems a bit harder. But he did a really great job with some of this recall practice, and we'll work a few other skills with him.